Up ahead, there is a large cave that comes out of the ground. The ground is riddled with bones, and suddenly you hear this roar of a large cave troll who comes out, wielding a club. What do you do? This type of storytelling is common in D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, and I've been playing the game for about 2.5 years, and I still enjoy it just as much as I did when I first started playing. My question for you today is, have you ever played, or have you wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons? If you have, this is for you. The idea of playing is often unappealing to many people because of the nerdy and geeky stereotypes out there. But I will say that the game encourages your inner creativity to show through, your imagination to grow, and even sometimes social skills. And it can really just help you in all of those areas. I'm going to attempt to break you of these stereotypes today. Whether you have this idea that there's too many rules, too many dice, or that it's too difficult because of creativity, and that it's for people who have no friends and live in their mom's basement. I want to inspire you to at least try playing the game. D&D is not too rule heavy, firstly. They're just there to limit how creative each player can be. So it's not too difficult to learn either. Yes, there are many rules, but the basics are pretty simple. I had friends teach me, for example. They were patient with me, my questions, and I play now every chance I get, simply because they helped me through it. D&D even has a page on their website entitled Basic Rules. As Wizards of the Coast, the company who owns Dungeons & Dragons, said on their website, on the Basic Rules page in 2018, they said, set in a medieval fantasy world, D&D allows you to experience stories and adventures full of endless possibilities and amazing surprises. The Basic Rules for Dungeons & Dragons is a PDF that covers the core of the tabletop game. So, essentially, they're saying that there's many resources out there, not even on the Dungeons & Dragons page. For example, second stereotype that people hold against it is that there's too many dice. There are 7 dice each player uses, but it doesn't make it too complex. In fact, they go over 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 20, and 100-sided dice. Granted, the 100-sided die is not 100 sides, it's just 10, but each side goes up in increments of 10, such as 10, 20, and 30, and so on. Essentially, the D20, or the 20-sided die, is the most commonly used die for the entire game. For example, say you're going to attack the troll from earlier at the cave. You will be rolling a D20 to see if you would even hit the troll. Say you roll a high enough number. Lucky. But now you need to roll a D6, for example, the 6-sided die, to see how much damage you inflict on the troll. Now, other dice here are basically irrelevant. But the 20-sided die is the most commonly used die, and it's the key to the whole game. Whether you're intimidating the troll, attacking the troll, or now running away from the enraged troll that you tried to attack and failed, because maybe you rolled a too low of a number, the 20-sided die is the most commonly used for the game. That's really all you need to know going into it. Thirdly, vivid imagination can be a turnoff in our day and age of electronics and screen devices and things. But without it, there really isn't a reason to play. As Jason Mills, my friend who owns a D&D-based business called Critical Dice, said in an interview I conducted about storytelling, he says, that's really what D&D is at its heart. It's a collaborative storytelling game where you get to create a world as a dungeon master or a storyteller, and then let other people in a kind of improv kind of way add to that story inside the structure of rules. As Jason had said, the dungeon master crafts the story, and the players play their part in this make-believe world that he's made. He or she. Now, me as a creative, I've always enjoyed writing, reading, things like that. So this game was a good outlet for me to channel that. However, I know first-hand stories where people don't like that sort of thing, and yet they got into D&D, and they still play today whenever they can, similar to me. So, meanwhile, there is yet one more stereotype people hold against D&D besides the idea that it's too complex. Consequently, this is the false idea that D&D is for weirdos or unpopular people who have no friends, and especially men. So whereas this idea lingers that it's D&D is for weirdos, it really isn't. And this can be seen in the fact that it's making a push into mainstream culture today. This comeback can be seen as when Keith Stewart writes on his article, "It's cool now, why Dungeons and Dragons is casting its spell again." That was this year, and it's on The Guardian online. He said, "Thanks to the popularity of open world video games and Stranger Things, a new generation has rediscovered the communal pleasures of the 80s role-playing phenomenon." So you see, Stranger Things and other similar TV shows and things have added this to this comeback into mainstream culture. Many years ago, it is true, the people who played D&D were geeks, nerds, and often were antisocial. But this comeback is changing that stereotype little by little. So whereas men were the majority of players a long time ago, that as well is changing with this comeback. It's not uncommon to see a girl playing at a table these days with many guys or many girls, for example. As Gindi Alamirang wrote in her article on the Washington Post entitled "How Dungeons and Dragons Became More Popular Than Ever," this was 2019, she said, "Women in particular love the new edition. D&D was originally a nerdy guy thing, emphasis on guy." So essentially that did change in this last decade or so, or even in the last 20 years maybe. Acquaintance of mine actually is a key party member in a long-running campaign I'm a part of, and she's a female. And so women do have many different roles to play, and really many different important roles to play in Dungeons and Dragons. Ultimately, the idea, thirdly, that D&D players have no friends is wrong. In fact, it encourages social communication and even bonding moments. One example can be seen in how Catriona White writes in her article on BBC.com, on her article called "Dungeons and Dragons is Being Used as Therapy." She says, "Therapists have long used roleplay as a tool, and D&D acts as the perfect platform." That was in 2017. So being a game for fun to even therapy, this game does encourage social interaction and bonding, and healthy social interaction at that. Here's another example. My brother-in-law, Eric, went to med school in Las Cruces, and he didn't have many friends until he was introduced to D&D. That changed it all. He now has a big circle of friends that he can play with every week or so. As you can see, D&D is not too weird or complex. And yes, it is an unusual game in our age of technology, but even with the technology, people will play even over Zoom or Discord online with each other. In conclusion, it's not too hard because of rules, number of dice, or just the idea that it's for unpopular people. Now, I want you to find a group of people who will show you through the game and help you learn the rules. D&D is not only fun, healthy, exciting even, but it's even primitive somewhat in our age of technology. You can go back to a time of Dungeons, Dragons, and friendship if you play Dungeons and Dragons.